Welcome to Confirmation Bias, presented by the League Ambassadors.
I'm Ambassador Kenny Ken, and Paul George. The street lights are on, baby. It's time to come home. And that's my confirmation bias.
I'm Ambassador Dad, and I want to thoroughly and wholeheartedly apologize to the Golden State Warriors. Last week I said they have a Pelican problem. They don't. And that's my confirmation bias.
My name is Red O, and Russell Westbrook is the Kanye West of basketball. And take it from someone who knows. Self-destruction is a skill that can be honed by hours of practice, just like a motherfucking jump shot. And that's my confirmation bias. Yeah, Red O!
Wow, and I'm Ambassador Chef Curry. And if you're not from where I'm from, then there's one thing that you should know. And that's that the Wizard, Ozzie Newsome Jr., is the greatest GM to ever stand behind the curtain. And that's my confirmation bias.
Welcome to Confirmation Bias, hosted by the League Ambassadors. This is episode 45, second season of our show. As a reminder, you can follow us everywhere on social media. Our handle is @TheLeagueAM. That is Twitter. That is Facebook. That is Instagram. Please visit our website, theleagueam.com. Check out our blog spot on that website, Diplomatic Immunity, as well as previous episodes of our show, Confirmation Bias, as well as our NFL flagship show, 32 Kings Road. We've got a good show today. We're going to discuss some NBA endings and some NFL beginnings. Dev, what's cracking?
We're going to get into some hot topics here. So as you mentioned, NBA endings. So we're going to talk a little bit NBA post-mortem. So since our last show, the remaining teams from the first round, they've gone fishing. So let's discuss what's next for these teams. So first up, we have OKC, who lost in 6 to Utah. So I want to start with you, Mr. Red O. Who is the man in the mirror in this situation?
Russell Westbrook's mom. Because right now,
He called her a man.
well, not what I was trying to do. He about to go, after Paul George leaves him, he's about to go home and start crying to his mama, talking about nobody will play with me.
Right.
And his mama going to tell him it's your fault.
So you've been a big Russ supporter for years
Yes.
and years. Has that flip switched for you because of...
Yes, I've tried. Y'all know. Anybody who knows me, I've tried. Like, you know, and I still want to see him with a better coach.
I'm a Bruin groupie.
But his talent is undeniable. We all know that, and it's just the most frustrating thing I've ever seen in my life of someone with that much talent, but basketball IQ is non-existent.
I've been saying it from the beginning. He is this generation's Allen Iverson, and in a way that's a little bit it degrades Allen Iverson a little bit, but in the sense of roster building and having the most success, you can only it's an ironic thing to say, but the only way that team will be as good as it can be, and I don't think you can win a title that way, is you've got to put just a bunch of complementary, not necessarily talented pieces around him, but he can't play with another good ball player. And in this era where it's all about acquiring as much talent as possible to build your team, I just don't see it ever working.
I disagree because Allen Iverson never had any talent with him. And he had to do, his role was exactly what he came to do.
But that's my point, though. My point is that if Allen Iverson had talented players that were as talented as him, you would have seen the same thing. You've got to basically
I don't
on
know if
offense.
that's true.
I
We don't have
definitely
any
think
evidence to say that.
Georgetown University, the Hoyas, like
What, Othello Harrington and Victor Page?
right. That's those.
What happened to Victor Page?
No, those. But in college, those were really good players that actually did better when Allen Iverson was gone, especially Victor Page and Othello.
The thing
Harrington.
about Westbrook is you need Westbrook and 4 3-point shooters.
you need a 3-point shooter. You need some rebounders and some guys that are going to play defense, like complementary pieces.
Aren't we watching that same formula fail right now with Cleveland and Toronto? It's the same thing with LeBron. It's like space out, you drive to the hole, and after a while, we're asking you to do everything on the team while then turning around and saying you don't have help.
Yeah, no,
I don't think that's a successful formula for OKC.
Not at all. It's definitely. That's what I said. I don't think you can win. Allen Iverson didn't win. He got to the finals, and that was also because he had a really great coach to go with him. I don't think you can win in today's NBA with that sort of thing, but that's the only way you're going to have a smooth sort of situation.
So, Kev, that's what Kenyon thinks. What do you think needs to change in order for them to be successful with him as a centerpiece?
Well, Russ is, of course, a big problem, but the biggest problem, I think, his name's Carmelo Anthony, because I believe they're on hook for that contract, man. And he clearly does not fit with what they're trying to do. And I personally think, in watching his game, since the Syracuse days, he needs someone who can give him the ball in certain situations and know when to get him the rock. And unfortunately, that guy's not Westbrook, because we saw the same thing happen with Kevin Durant, and I honestly think that's why he left.
Yeah. So the other team that was bounced in the Western Conference, another one is the Spurs. They lost in 5 to Golden State. I don't think that was too much of a surprise. But Ken, me and Kev kind of talked about this. We had a debate a couple weeks back about Kawhi. But what do you think is the best way to handle this Kawhi situation?
I mean, the way that I think that it probably will get handled, which is to say, you don't trade perennial all-star players. You don't let those guys walk out of the building.
He doesn't want to be there, so what you gonna do?
Well, he doesn't want to be there, or or is it that his team doesn't want him to be there? I think that, a heart-to-heart with Popovich, especially considering, and it feels wrong, a little bit wrong to say, but especially considering recent events with Popovich. And that's even if Popovich wants to come back, because I know that, Popovich had talked about retiring as recently as 2 years ago. And he just
when Timmy left.
Part of the reason why he decided to stick around was because of Kawhi Leonard. So I think that as an organization, you need to do everything that you can to keep the talent, because you're not going to get equal talent coming back to you. Mm-hmm. See Kyrie Irving, so that's.
Omar, do you agree with that?
In a perfect world, yes, but this world ain't perfect, and because of his contract situation, he has all the power. Because you see, I sat out this year, I'm walking at the end of next year, so either that and you get nothing, or you trade me and get something, and then since I'm a free agent, I can dictate where I want to go. I don't know if that's what he's going to do, but. One thing the Spurs don't have is the power in this situation.
So let's say they do lose him, right? Obviously, it would have to be by trade. What step do they go in? I mean, I
think it's a full-scale rebuild. And, teams are really afraid to do it. Jerry West, man. Jerry West, he's come to the Clippers, and no one's talking about it because there's so much energy in other places and attention in other places. But when he traded Blake Griffin during the season, he, again, laid out the blueprint of what you do. If you end up having to give up Kawhi, I'm calling teams and I'm saying who wants LaMarcus and for what, and you get on with it. That's all you do. You get on with it. You can't. Yeah, and I don't know why more teams don't do that. Like, especially an organization like the Spurs that has earned the credibility with their fans. That they're always going to do something to try to put out the best possible product. But trying to extend the run and say we're going to circle around LaMarcus Aldridge, I think would be a mistake if it came to that.
I think part of the problem is they realize they're getting towards the end of Pop. and they probably wanted to get one more out of him, and it's the way it's looking. That's not happening.
So, Kev, speaking of change, right? We had another team very close in proximity to you that made a first-round exit. The Wizards lost to Toronto in 6. Man, do the Wizards blow it up or do they run it back?
I don't think so. I may be a little optimistic here, but I think they should, strictly from a personnel standpoint, look at the blueprint that Toronto has laid, where they're sticking with their core, despite how many times they've come up short in hilarious fashion. They stuck with their core. It's a similar build with 2 strong guards, a supporting cast. I would say Washington's a little more limited in Toronto, but they have guys that can get their own shot. But I think a problem that they can look at now is they have buyer's remorse with the contract they gave to Otto Porter. He's getting paid, $100 million when you got Kelly Oubre who can do the same exact thing. So, I don't know if they consider that Oubre will make that jump or that Porter wouldn't. But at the same time, you're paying a guy that much money to do something that you already have when you could use that money to get depth in other places like Toronto did. But their problem is they need to change their style of play. Again, same thing Toronto did.
Is that why they didn't advance their style of play?
Yes, because they could not move the ball and get quality shots when it mattered. They relied solely on Bradley Beal and John Wall. And I think John Wall is the problem because as much as he can carry that team in the fourth quarter, he needs to be a better leader off the court. We saw with his post-game comments about guys need to know their role and the things that he was tweeting and getting into while he was injured. It's not a cohesive group there in terms of them actually, gelling together. And it starts with him. I think you have to know when to get your guys involved, when to criticize, when to motivate. And he seems to be more of the critical guy on that team. And then when they lose, he kind of pushes the blame to everybody else. It's like, dude, you're the one who turns the ball over 4 or 5 times in the fourth quarter.
Right. You
can't have that and make it to the next round of the playoffs. It's impossible.
So staying in the East and going from one team that's going down to a team that's on the up and up. The Pacers lost a 7-game series to the Cavs. I don't think any of us expected them to be in this situation, trading away Paul or losing Paul George last season. What changes do they need to make? I mean, first of all, let's address the elephant in the room, and I do mean elephant. Mr. Al Jefferson, who's the only OG on the team, who's about 307 years old. He's owed $10 million next year, and he only played like 35 games this year. Didn't play a minute in the playoffs.
He should strap up that parachute because it's gold and take that $10 million and get out of Dodge. I think Indiana, Victor Oladipo was a revelation. Oh, by the way, Russell Westbrook, that's another thing. We didn't know Oladipo was that good based off of what he did in Oklahoma City. Indiana stick and stay. Miles Turner's got to get better, though.
Yes.
He's
100%.
regressed. Yeah. Because compared to where he was coming off of his rookie season and what he looked like in this offseason.
Yes and no. He was worse in the regular season, I guess. But remember how bad he was in the playoffs last year.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But he was better this year. That doesn't say much. That's how bad he was last year.
But his rookie year, he was on the up and up, and he's got talent. He's got inside outside game. I think he's got to continue to develop. But with Sabonis and Oladipo, they're definitely looking up.
So the Heat also made a first round exit. They lost in 5 to the young Sixers. There's a war going on outside. No man is safe from. Hey, Omar, Team Whiteside, Team Riley. Whiteside wants to play more. Riley says he ain't ready. They paid that man $98 million to sit on the bench in the playoffs.
Which is a recurring theme here. Teams that were stuck with buyer's remorse.
Well, I trust Riles. Right. I don't trust him. So I'm always going to be Team Riles. First of all, that was one of the reasons why Keon and I would have these conversations when he was about being a free agent and the Lakers possibly grabbing him, and it always came down to, man, he's gonna be a liability. When he's out there, his plus minus is horrible,
right?
So. And they saw that. There was nobody else to play, and they didn't play him anyway.
And they just didn't. They decided against that.
Part of it is also just, and we know this. Anybody that's paid attention to basketball knows the style of play. Just if you are a traditional big man, It's not happening for you
Right.
unless you are killing on the defensive end. It's not gonna happen for you. And Philadelphia, even with Embiid, played him off the floor because you look at the difference. Embiid can play outside. Embiid can run the floor. Whiteside is, he is who he is.
Well, keeping in that theme, Kev, we have the Wolves who lost in 5 to the Rockets, and they had a glaring theme going on in that series that they would not address. Is Tibbs the right man for the job there to get them out over the hump?
Well, let's make it clear that Tibbs is the only reason that all of these guys are together. It's the Chicago Bulls retirement plan. But also, I mean, we got to give credit where it's due. The Timberwolves made it to the playoffs. But in terms of them getting over the hump, getting to that next step, I don't know how you can be an experienced coach in this league and whether it be a press conference, a fist fight on court, something, you have to get the ball to Karl Anthony Towns. And it just seemed like that wasn't something that was part of their game plan, despite the fact that on film you see that they have a clear mismatch there. He just didn't make it a point for that to happen. So I think in order for Towns to make the next step, Thibodeau's not going to be disloyal to his guys who he helped bring there. So I think that franchise is going to go as far as Towns takes them, and I don't think Tibbs is going to be the one to coach him there.
Fizdale. Anyone? Fizdale?
I think
There's no vet to kick him out.
My answer, my answer to every coaching change this season is the same answer. But you didn't. You were talking.
That's righteous oath. No, I think that they need a coach. They're ready to take the next step to be one of the. There's no reason why they shouldn't be an elite competitive team. I agree with you, Kev. I don't think Tibbs is that coach. I don't think Fizdale is that coach either.
Who hasn't done anything?
Yeah, he hasn't done anything. I mean, honestly, that would be an interesting team. I think
He was thrown out there in January when they made the move.
It's an interesting team for Jeff Van Gundy, I think.
See, my answer is Mark Jackson.
Oh, get out of here.
He's been opining for 3 years on everybody's sack. All right, last but not least, actually really least, but the Bucks, even, they lost to the Celtics in 7, which we thought the Bucks would beat the hurt Celtics.
Brad Stevens.
Yeah. Great coach. Is Bledsoe part of the problem or the solution? Let's just get right to it so we can get out of the segment.
To me, he's a non-factor, honestly. Like, I don't think
come
he's a part
on.
of it.
Put MF in between there. Put MF between there.
He was brought in to be part of the solution.
I mean, he's not helping them at all. And then when the pressure's on him, his number gets called, he doesn't answer. It's like, all right, we got to move on, because he was brought in to be one of those scoring guards to help balance out the fact that Brogdon is their primary ball handler. He's got to go, and they got to get Greg Monroe back.
I'm with it. Greg Monroe needs to come back. All right, so over the weekend we had this beautiful draft.
Won't he?
We have some quarterbacks. It was a quarterback-heavy draft. Now, ask the question to you guys. Is it hope or hype? Did the quarterbacks from the draft land in good situations?
I think it is hope. I think 3.5 out of the 5 landed in a good situation. I think you got Mayfield, who we didn't like as that pick, but he gets to sit behind someone. You got Lamar, who gets to sit behind someone. You have Rosen, who's in the right spot. And then Darnold's probably the best one out of there. He not a great situation, but he's a half a player, and we don't know what the racist is going to do in Buffalo, but I'll take 3.5.
Oh, wow, Josh Allen, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, overall, yeah, it's hope, because I think all the teams are taking the right approach, which is everybody is sitting. And I think with this quarterback class, that's the best that you could ask for. I do think, though, that Sam Darnold landed in the worst possible spot. Terrell Pryor, Robbie Anderson, Jermaine Kersey, Jordan Leggett, Quincy Enunwa, Bucky Hodges, Chris Herndon.
You can stop.
Did you hear what? Go ahead, Kevin.
I was gonna say, well, it was 13 quarterbacks taken throughout the draft total. But the ones that I'm looking at are Allen, in Buffalo, like you said, and Rosen in Arizona. They both have a chance to, I think, do what we saw the Bears do with Mitch Trubisky, that sit behind a quarterback who we know is going to lose the starting job by week 3. And they have some type of talent, specifically Rosen, with David Johnson, and I'm assuming Fitz is playing this year to work with. So I think that's the route to go. Let these guys sit and then let the investment pay off.
Did y'all see what Baker Mayfield's agent said? That the Patriots called him and said if he's there too, we trying to trade up to get him.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Very interesting. I wonder if that's smoke or was he just trying to big up his
There's no
client?
reason to smoke. I mean, it's the
Which is true.
Yeah.
There was no reason. All right, so today we're not doing hit or flop. We doing hit and flop. I need y'all to pick one and the other. So pick one winner and one loser from the draft, but not your own team.
I'm gonna say the Giants.
I agree with you.
Giants got the best player in the draft.
I agree with you.
They got O-line help.
Yep.
And they haven't had a feature back since Tiki, and that was 2006.
Yeah.
My flop is going to be Seattle.
I agree with you. Completely agree.
They reached for a running back.
Their best picks was a motherfucker with one hand and a condom.
We're going to get to him. And they didn't draft an O-lineman.
They drafted one.
Oh, was it?
They drafted one O-lineman, but they didn't draft any corners and any receivers. So their receivers, they lost Paul Richardson in the offseason. They got Doug Baldwin and Tyler Lockett, who are 5'5" and 5'8" respectively. They lost all their corners. Their corners are a guy named Nico Thorpe, and then they got Shaquille Griffin, who was a rookie last year, who's pretty good. So I don't know what Seattle was doing. It's a fail.
I actually went along the same route for my hit. I picked Eli Manning, and not the Giants, but Eli Manning, because the Giants invested in the end of their Super Bowl winning quarterback's career instead of drafting his replacement. They got him younger weapons. Eli's probably going to play. He's going to try to play as long as his brother did, get at least another ship or two. I think the Giants can now compete to the level we thought they would last year. And as far as my flop goes, I hate to kick a man while he can't be present to defend himself. But the Oakland Raiders, yo, what the? Okay, so you bring in Jordy Nelson to fill the possession receiver void left by Crabtree, and then they traded back to get O-line help on an O-line that's pretty solid. Mm-hmm. They draft a corner in the 4th, a punter in the 5th, and they did trade to get Martavis Bryant, which was a good trade. But can he play cornerback? Because they have none of those. No, you go ahead.
All I'll say about the Raiders draft, Les, I'm trying to hold it down for you, is that Arden Key and Maurice Hurst, two guys who had a lot of, for different reasons, had red flags on them coming into the draft. Arden Key has got some disciplinary problems, but he's a talented DN out of LSU. And then Maurice Hurst, who was actually a top 10 talent, but they discovered that he had a heart condition at the combine. If he hits on those with Martavis Bryant, we might be looking back differently at the draft. But as of right now, Kevin, I get it.
Yeah.
They're going to score 50 and give up 51.
And I had the Giants in Seattle, so we can move on.
As you should.
So Shaquille Griffin and Jordan Mailata were both drafted. Both were special players and special stories for various reasons. Is it newsworthy and nothing to see here that they were both drafted?
I think it's absolutely newsworthy. I mean, Griffin obviously has a brother on the same team. He has one hand, as you pointed out, and you said so many times over the weekend while we were together. He's going to work his ass off, and either it's going to work out. He's going to try and give the defense a hand.
Oh my God.
I thought the whole Mailata thing was nothing to see until I saw footage of him running over people.
Yes.
I don't know. He got drafted by the Eagles, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what position he's going to play, but they can find a job for him to fulfill. I can guarantee.
He's 6'8", 345, and athletic as hell.
Give him the ball on the goal line.
Exactly. Yeah. Like there's some refrigerator Perry potential here, but in 2 years we are all going to be talking about Jordan Mailata for real. That tape was awesome. It's time for Is You With It or Nah? We're going to have the brothers going head up. Over the weekend,
Go ahead.
Stretch.
over the weekend, two of the greatest tight ends in NFL history made news. We've got Jason Witten, who basically is pulling the okie doke on the Dallas Cowboys.
They deserved it.
Said, oh, by the way, I'm actually out. I'm going to take this ESPN job. And he will go down as the franchise leader in catches and yards, which is impressive for a tight end. Not to be outdone, though, by Mr. Antonio Gates, who over the weekend was told by the Los Angeles Chargers. Yes, I did. Yeah. I almost said it. Mm-hmm. By the Los Angeles Chargers that his services were no longer needed. 15 years career for both men. Antonio Gates, franchise leader in not only catches and yards, but also touchdowns. And, part of one of the most prolific quarterback to tight end, actually quarterback to receiver, let's just say receiver combinations in NFL history. So the question today for the brothers is Jason Witten or Antonio Gates? If you can only take one to the Hall of Fame, guys, which one do you choose? And Kevin, I will allow you to call it in the air. Heads or tails, go.
Birds got tails, baby. Let's go.
Tails.
Tails it is. Who are you taking with you, Jason Witten or Antonio Gates?
I'm taking the brother to the promised land. Let's go, Antonio.
All right. Dev, you want to go first or do you want to go last?
I'll let that whole go first.
Start the music.
All right. Mr. Antonio Ethan, for you, Omar, Gates Jr., deserves the nod for one reason, and that's because he was never supposed to be an NFL tight end to begin with. He originally enrolled at Michigan State to play both football and basketball, but the great Nick Saban, who was a football coach at the time, told him he only wanted to play football. So Gates transferred 3 times before he ended up at Kent State. He never played a down of college football. Scouts told him he was too much of a tweener to have an NBA career. So he was actually lucky enough to get drafted. He was undrafted. He got signed by the San Diego Chargers in 2003. And from that, he was selected to the Pro Bowl 8 times, 3 times All-Pro, first team. Led the league in touchdown catches for a tight end for 5 seasons. Led the league in receiving yards as a tight end 3 times. He's the second tight end and the 9th player ever to record 100 career touchdown catches. He ranks 6th all-time in career touchdown catches, and since he has not retired officially, that's the most by any active player. He's a member of the 2000 All-Decade team, and the only other tight end on that team is the GOAT, Tony Gonzalez, not Jason Witten. And speaking of Tony Gonzalez, it is Gates, not Gonzalez, who has the most touchdown receptions ever amongst tight ends. So for that reason, and the fact that he's black, I think it's time they open up the gates and let Antonio in the Hall of Fame over Jason Witten. Get this paper.
All right.
Hold on.
Let me know when you're ready.
That's what she told me last night.
It's Big Brother's turn.
Go.
All right, so when it comes to the tight end position, these two are easily in the top 10 in the history of the game with their accomplishments. This position was once a glory position back in the olden days, and then it kind of fell off at some point, but it made a huge return around the time that they came into the league. So if we're talking about numbers, they're fairly comparable. But however, the reason why Jason Witten is going in the Hall of Fame over Gates, if we had to choose, is health, endurance, and production. Star tight end in the league right now, Rob Gronkowski, his 8-year career, he's missed 27 games. Shannon Sharp, 14-year career, he missed 20 games. Antonio Gates, in his 15-year career, missed 20 games. How many games did Jason Witten miss? 1. He missed 1 fucking game at a position where he's the best receiver on the team and he chips at least every play. Although Gates has scored more touchdowns than Witten, I believe he's been more productive. The fact that he started every single game since his second season. Witten has more catches in that time span, 225 more receptions, 940 more yards. They played the same amount of years, obviously, but Gates only had 3 he only had more receptions during those 15 years 3 times. So Jason had more receptions than him 12 out of those 15 years. Witten has 4,000-yard seasons. Gates only has 2. Neither of them have had much playoff success because their teams choked it off. Gates played 10 playoff games. Witten had 8. But guess who has better numbers? Witten. And Terrell Suggs said you don't leave home without a white tight end, so we sticking with that. Gates hasn't made the Pro Bowl since 2011. Mr. Witten made it last year. So consistency, better all-around player, better blocker. He's on the field. He's healthy. That's why he gets in over Gates.
He played in a dome.
All right. That was actually really, 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 really good debate. Red O.
It was one.
Omar.
It was one way, then it wasn't.
Yeah. You know what? I'm kind of with you on that, right? I didn't know.
Antonio, Ethan.
I didn't know.
Gates.
I didn't know statistically Witten was killing Gates like that.
Well, he's not killing Gates.
I mean,
225.
was your, who confirmed your bias, Redo?
Both of them. Shit.
It's a hard debate, though.
Mike,
It is.
I guess we got to go.
I mean, for real, man. I mean, first of all, they both are first ballot Hall of Famers when they retire. But for sake of argument, God, it's hard to go with a Cowboy. Yeah, man, Witten.
Yes.
Oh,
And your
come
argument won it.
on.
My bias was Gates. Your argument won it. I don't know if it's
It's
true.
one game.
We're gonna have to fact check it.
All right, Kev. We got anything in diplomatic immunity?
There was one thing that came up. If we have time, real quick, did it strike you guys that off the field stuff that seems to come up every year, the day of the draft, happened again this year? Like, does it kind of seem like the NFL is kind of complacent in this? Like how these stories just seem to come up to drop guys' draft stock?
Yeah.
Well, it's the teams. The teams are doing it on purpose because they like a player who they don't think they can get. So let me leak this. That means every team that means that information was out there and they knew it was out there.
Buffalo leaked that shit.
And on that note, we will get out of here. Once again, this is another episode of Confirmation Bias. Follow us everywhere on social media. Our handle is @TheLeagueAM. That's Twitter, that's Facebook, that's Instagram. Check out our website, theleagueam.com. We will see you later this week. Shout out to Chief Diplomat Nick Blackman with the draft write-up.
Yes, sir. Check it out.
Kanye West don't care about black people.
Kevin, I'm 2-0, bitch.